risky behavior.
Yo, what's up? How y'all doing? Welcome back to Risky Behavior. I am your host, Diabolical. The segment for today that we're doing is called The Worst News Ever. Um, Today's show is going to have a particular focus on caregivers, so I titled it "When Caregivers Attack." Or but it could, some of these news stories is going to be just more so, some are going to be attack, some are going to be neglect, some is going to be outright excuse me, sorry about that. Some of it is going to just be a outright horror story, like one of these news clips, so basically what we do today is we play news clips, um and from the news, so it's official, information, and we just react and talk about them. You'll probably notice that in a lot of these news clips, it's a focus on crimes against children, and that's because a lot of time these crimes get swept under the rug, and so I think it's very important. I almost said I think, but I don't want to say I think. I know it's very important to highlight these stories and to keep them out there in front of people's face so people know what's going on, because children are the least protected among us, um, because they can't fend for themselves, and people usually pick on children and handicapped people. Yo, what's up? Shout out to my brother Marcus Banks in the building. What's up? Man, I'm a little behind, man. Yeah, I meant to wake up earlier. Let me see. I gotta boom, 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 boom. There we go. My bad, I had a message. So, I also want people to remember, as I'm talking about people when I'm doing the show, um, it's not about calling people good or bad. I think those are very subjective terms. I don't necessarily see the world in I don't see the world as good or evil. I see it as it exists, which is, I look at the world as far as like it's all about order and chaos, right? People engage in risky behavior, and it's what they say, what they do, the decisions they make, the choices they make can either create order in their life or chaos in their life. And so when we're looking at people, we're not just looking at them as good or bad, good versus evil. We're looking at order and chaos and stuff. So I want people to keep that in mind when I am playing these clips. Oh, Mark, you said you at bingo right now, man. All right. I'll catch you later, man. Yep. So this is a news story out of Detroit. Two children passed away in a car.
Tonight, an update on the heartbreaking story of two young siblings found dead in a minivan in a Greektown parking structure.
So the circumstances are tragic. The Wayne County prosecutor will determine if their mother or anyone else contributed to their deaths. Fox News' Jessica Dupnack joins us live with more on today's developments. It's been a very busy day in this case, Jessica.
Yeah, this is really the next step in this investigation since the beginning. Detroit police have been looking into this case, not only to figure out what led to the children's death, but also to see if there was a criminal component to it all. Now, since that time in February, there's been multiple people brought in for questioning, including the children's mother and grandma, but no arrests have been made. Now it will be up to Wayne County prosecutor Kim Worthy to decide if anybody is criminally culpable. Since February, Detroit police have been investigating to figure out what led to the death of 2-year-old Amila Curry and her brother, 9-year-old Darnell Curry. And now their findings are with the Wayne County prosecutor's office. Until last week, the theory was the two kids froze to death But an autopsy revealed the cause of death is carbon monoxide poisoning. At the time of their death, they were in the care of their mother, 29-year-old Tatiana Williams. The family, homeless, living out of a van, parked at the Greektown Casino parking structure in February when they died.
Everybody who knows me know I worship the ground and kids walk though.
The sequence of events that led to the children's death have not been revealed, or where the children were exposed to carbon monoxide. Both children wearing T-shirts and the toddler in a diaper. The older boy was covered in lice and the 2-year-old with rotted teeth. Our Charlie Langton talked to the children's mom and grandma back in February.
Did the van run out of gas?
I have no idea what happened. I have no idea.
Did you fall asleep?
Yes.
And then when you woke?
Only night I fell asleep. I usually be woke.
Both Tatiana Williams and her mom, Yvette Goodman, have been questioned by Detroit police. No arrests were made. Now, the Wayne County prosecutor will decide if anyone should be charged in the case. Mayor Mike Duggan vowing wraparound services for Williams after learning she did not receive help when calling the city's homeless hotline. She also received a free home on the city's west side from the Detroit Rescue Mission Ministries.
This cannot ever happen again.
Detroit Police Chief Todd Bettison not going on camera today, stressing in a statement put out on social media and to the media that this next step is standard protocol when it comes to their criminal investigations, and any charging decision will fall on the prosecutor's office. Reporting downtown Detroit, Jessica Dupnack on The Edge.
Jessica, you broke this story with the help of your sources. The next question that's really been popping up online is, what kind of charges are we looking at here? Do you have any indication at this time?
It's a really good question, and there's been a lot of sensitivity around a case like this just because of how widespread it has been picked up really around the country. Now, as far as charges now, I think it's important to keep in mind that because carbon monoxide was determined to be the cause of death, that does mean that the children's death is ruled accidental, at least by the medical examiner. So that changes a little bit how the prosecutor will examine this in terms of charges. I have a feeling it's going to be weeks, if not months, before a decision is made.
Jessica Dupnack, we do appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh man, that was very, very sad. LaVolt, you said our products for self-tanning made in the U.S. or are they being imported? I don't know. I don't know. I don't self-tan. I would think somebody in whatever country that they're in, I'm pretty sure they're going to be people in that country that would want to supply their own people no matter where you live at in the world. So I don't know. Anyway, so very sad situation. You see a mother crying out. And it was interesting. They saying, well, oh, she didn't get any help. And so they had to do the investigation. And the good news is looks like it came back in her favor. They didn't try to destroy her. And
Local 4 News update. Closure at last for a Metro Detroit family who tragically lost 2 children in the parking garage of a Detroit casino. After weeks of waiting, the cause of death has finally been revealed. The Wayne County Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office, I should say, has confirmed that the children died from carbon monoxide poisoning.
They did not freeze to death as previously thought by police. So this is a story that we've been following for weeks now. In the early hours of February 10th, Tatiana Williams parked her van in the Hollywood Casino parking structure on Beaubien Boulevard with her 5 kids. The family was sleeping in that van. But later that morning, Williams says she found her 2- and 9-year-old unresponsive. They were rushed to the hospital where they were pronounced dead.
Initially, police thought they died of hypothermia. The autopsy began the next day, and today the results were finally released. The medical examiner confirmed the official cause of death was carbon monoxide poisoning, and it was an accident. Tonight, we're learning more about how carbon monoxide affects people differently. Jacqueline Francis is live after speaking with an expert on the topic. Jacqueline.
And what they're about to say explaining carbon monoxide is very important because I remember sometimes I used to go, I would sleep in my car. I was working so hard. Sometimes I wouldn't go home. It was to the point people thought I was homeless. And I remember somebody said, "Oh, you need to be careful. You sleeping in your car, man. They're carbon monoxide, right?" And this is a long time ago, so it's not like these newer cars. I had an older car. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "I'm just sleeping in my car. How is carbon monoxide? The exhaust filters it all out to the outside of the car. How am I going to pass away? Excuse me for sleeping in my car." It made no sense to me, and all this time until I seen this news clip, now I realize like, okay, that person had a point that you do got to be careful sleeping in your car, especially over extended periods of time.
We're here in the local 4 parking garage, and even though it's a big space, the carbon monoxide that can come from an exhaust can be deadly, and the amount that's toxic to me as an adult is different than what it would be for a child. They call it the silent killer, carbon monoxide, a colorless, odorless gas that is a byproduct of combustion.
Unfortunately, it's not surprising. In Detroit being a northern city, we get a lot of carbon monoxide cases.
Amy Nefsey is an ER doctor and toxicologist. She says colder weather means more heat sources and therefore more carbon monoxide. In the case of the 2 young children poisoned while living out of their van in a Greektown parking garage, she said the carbon monoxide source could have been one of a few things.
There's an internal leak where it's not all being pumped outside of the cab and it collects inside the cab of the van. Then that could be one way.
If not a leak, she says carbon monoxide could have filtered in from the exhaust through an open window.
Once it gets inside the van, it settles to the bottom because it's heavier than normal air, and it layers down on the bottom of the van, and it doesn't circulate out because all the windows are up higher than where the carbon monoxide is sitting. And I'm sure the children were sleeping on the floor.
She says the colder temperatures may have made things worse.
If they did have a little bit of hypothermia, you're not going to respond as well to, not being able to breathe. So it was like a triple whammy. They were sleeping, it was cold, and there was carbon monoxide.
Carbon monoxide monitors can be used in your house and even your car. If you're exposed to the toxic gas, some of the symptoms include nausea, headache, dizziness, and confusion. If you think this is happening to you, you should call 911 right away. Reporting live in Detroit, Jacqueline Francis, Local 4.
It's so heartbreaking for those kids. Jacqueline, thank you. And while these carbon monoxide deaths happen in a vehicle, it happens way more often in homes and apartments. Go to clickondetroit.com for a detailed list of how to keep your family safe. Scan the QR code right here on your screen to learn more about the symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning. Jacqueline went over some of those symptoms and the best places to install detectors.
We are also hearing from Detroit Police Chief Todd Bettison tonight about the medical examiner's report. The chief saying in part, quote, "We will continue investigating the facts and circumstances of the case and submit our findings to the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office," end quote. We'll, of course, keep you posted on any more updates if they come out of this case.
That's sad. Another thing that I found out too when
Pontiac.
when learning about carbon monoxide, don't let those people trick you when they say, "Hey, we had they had a time." I don't know if they're still doing it. I hope they're not, because it's definitely dangerous and effed up to do. They were selling smoke detectors. It's a smoke detector and carbon monoxide all in one. And I remember I found out that you can't do that. Smoke detectors go up high because smoke rise. The carbon monoxide, it settles down on the floor like they said it did for that mom and those children in that car. So why were they at one point, they might not do it anymore. At one point, they were actually selling smoke detectors and carbon monoxide. It's never going to pick up the carbon monoxide. It's a waste of money. And they were selling it like that. No, you got to have 2 separate devices. Your smoke detector go up, be high for catch the smoke, and your carbon monoxide, they're going to always be at the bottom on the floor. And they take this stuff seriously. I know if if ever the battery, the wire, or it goes bad in the house, every time, and it's irritating, you got to hurry up and get it fixed, because every time it goes bad in the fire, when the fire department comes out, that is one thing. They have to clear the house and they have to sweep the house with their reader. They're going to walk through your house, and until they clear the house, nobody can go back in, and they have to do it every time. So that's just a fun fact to let you know that if your carbon monoxide detector ever breaks, hurry up and get it fixed, because if they have to keep coming out there and clearing your house, you will be charged for it. So always keep that thing up to date. What's interesting about this case is that mother, she did call, and I think that helped in her, is going to work in her favor, because she can show that she wasn't being necessarily negligent. She's going through a hard time, because they said she did call in and she was unable to get help for her and her kids. And I know people are going to say things like, oh, how she get 5 kids and she's poor and stuff. Life happens. We don't have her full story to know what happened. I know I have a cousin that was in a similar situation. She was married, 5 kids, husband abusive. She left him. She had a hard time getting on her feet after that. So it's no telling. But things like this reminds me of certain conversations we have when people say, oh, well, a woman can't raise a man. And I point to situations like this to say, well, no, anytime that you have a single parent on their own without any help, it's going to be hard for anybody to raise a kid under those circumstances and to instill the best thing in them, because when you have children, it makes it harder to get back on your feet. You know, when it's going good, it's going good. But if you fall, if you got other people depending on you, it's easy when you by yourself, hustle, sleep in your car, stay in a hotel room. You can eat for probably $10 a day when you're by yourself, but it's hard when you got kids. It's going to take you longer to get back on your feet. You're going to have to work hard, way harder than if you were by yourself. Anyway, moving back to the news clip, we got a popular woman. This was the Pontiac mom who abandoned her kids for 3 years? 3 years she was abandoning her kids. She was just showing up at the house, dropping off food. And so she got caught up with that. And they apparently had told her to stop trying to contact these kids, which I don't know why she would want to contact them anyway, because she abandoned them. Now she want to contact them that she's behind bars, which makes no sense to me.
Mother is behind bars on child abuse charges and was back in court today for allegedly violating a judge's order. Welcome to CBS News Detroit at 5. I'm Terrence Friday.
And I'm Meredith Bruckner. The Oakland County Prosecutor's Office says Kelly Bryant tried to contact her children 10 times after a judge imposed a no-contact order. Gina Vici joins us outside the 50th District Court in downtown Pontiac with more on the judge's ruling this afternoon. Gina, what can you tell us?
Well, Meredith, remember, the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office wanted Kelly Bryant's communication privileges suspended indefinitely. Well, today, a judge ruled they would be suspended temporarily for 1 week.
At this point, it appears to me that there was a flagrant violation of the court order.
Judge Cynthia Thomas Walker making it clear that Kelly Bryant has to cease and desist with any communication with her 3 children or their caregiver.
I am going to indicate there will be a 1-week suspension of any jail communication.
The Oakland County Prosecutor's Office discovered at least 10 attempts from jail where Bryant.
You know what? I don't know if anybody remembers seeing this lady. I don't know if jail does it, or is it the lack of weave and makeup? But like when they posted her pictures before, like saying, because she had abandoned her 3 kids, left them at the house, she would just drive by and drop them off food and everything. And I remember they was like, she living her best life. She was partying, going around. She was, and that wig came off and that makeup came off, and she just looked hard. I would not want no problems with her. If I owed her any money, I would pay it. If they said she was looking for me, I would hide. Like, it's crazy. Oh my God. When you see the difference, it's almost like those, maybe it's just jail that does it to people. she's looking bad. She was looking like party, but now she.
Allegedly called the caregiver of her children. Bryant's attorney stated her client was unclear about the order, but Judge Thomas Walker wasn't buying that argument.
So I want to make sure that she understands the court orders are exactly that. They are not suggestions. They are not hopes that you will comply, but I expect strict compliance with the no contact provisions.
Bryant was arrested and charged a few weeks ago with first-degree child abuse and welfare fraud after investigators discovered her 3 children had been living inside a trash-filled condo in Pontiac for several years, and most of the time by themselves. During her arraignment, the presiding judge issued a no-contact order. Again, Bryant is accused of violating that order. She's also accused of having other inmates make calls for her to her children. Although the judge imposed a temporary 1-week suspension of Bryant's communication privileges, she offered a very stern warning in the event she does it again.
Because if there is another violation, the court will schedule.
See, this what I'm talking about. You see what I'm saying? Like, it was not too different, but you know what I mean? I didn't know, it's crazy when you see them and this is when she's first arrested. So when she walk around, she looks a little better than that and stuff like that. But it's like now behind bars and stuff in there, you just see her there. It's kind of like jail. They put them in there and it just decays people and just ages them at least 10, 15, 20 years. It's just crazy.
Schedule an emergency hearing within 24 hours of receiving notice of a violation.
Now back here live, the Oakland County Prosecutor Karen McDonald has responded by saying she is grateful for the judge's order. Meanwhile, Bryant remains behind bars and a $50,000 cash bond. If convicted of these charges, she could spend the rest of her life behind bars. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Gino, for those updates on these developing stories.
Insane.
The stepson, who's now 32, says from the time.
Oh man. Now, the nerve of that damn lady. How you abandon your kids all that time? You abandon your kids. She would show up and just drop food off on the porch. Peace out. Bye. Sure. Peel off. And she can't even, and now she want to be in contact with them. It's obvious that she's just trying to influence her kids, maybe what to say, what not to say is all she's doing. She's trying to what they call it? Not threaten. She's probably not threatening her kids, but she's trying to coerce them. Maybe.
The stepson, who's now 32.
She's probably telling them like, oh, don't say this, don't say that, coerce them and stuff. But anywho, this next story is very, very interesting to me. It's Connecticut man escapes after 20 years of captivity in stepmother's home. 20 freaking years. So apparently is a young man being held hostage by his stepmom. They said the family been looking for him. They said the family, they did not know where he was at. They were worried. And the whole time he was with the stepmom. And I guess the stepmom must have moved and stuff. So this guy he's trapped. And he sets a fire to cause attention to the house, the home, fire department. People come and they discover him. But he's been held hostage 20 years by the stepmom. Oh, I forgot to click.
2 says from the time he was 12, he was kept in an 8 by 9 foot room.
Yeah.
So he says the guy was 32 years old and since the age of 12 kept in a room.
And it wasn't until he took matters into his own hands that he was found. Fox 6's Teresa Priolo is in the newsroom with these disturbing details, to say the least, Teresa.
Yeah, incredibly disturbing. Steve and Natasha, this is a story that came to light because of a 911 call for a house on fire. What authorities say they found was a fire set by a man who was held captive inside of his home for 2 decades. We want to warn you, the story and the details of it are difficult to hear. The man says he intentionally set that fire because he wanted his freedom. He's 32 years old. He weighs just 68 pounds. Waterbury, Connecticut police say he was so emaciated that his body resembled that of a patient with advanced cancer. The man was trapped inside of his home, he says, drinking from the toilet to stay hydrated. He was held inside of a room that had multiple locks on the outside of the door. He says his stepmother, 56-year-old Kimberly Sullivan, subjected him to prolonged abuse, starvation, severe neglect, and inhumane treatment. She's charged with assault, kidnapping, unlawful restraint, cruelty to persons, and reckless endangerment.
There's an adult that was 5'9" and 68 pounds. There's some apparent orthopedic issues. The room was very small. Honestly, when I read about it and talk to the investigators and overlook the interviews, it was worse than the conditions of a jail cell.
Yeah, let that sink in. The victim claims his stepmother and another person found him after he lit that fire, and they tried to wash his face to clean him up before firefighters arrived. They also said they tried to remove a bolt lock from the door frame. So the last time this man really interacted with the outside world was when he was in grade. Interacted with the outside world was when bolt lock from the door frame. They found him after he lit that fire, and they tried.
I'm gonna rewind it to see who did that.
Found him after he lit that fire, and they tried to wash his face. Lit that fire, and they.
Come on. Okay, here we go.
The victim claims his stepmother and another person found him after he lit that fire, and they tried to wash his face to clean him up before firefighters arrived. They also said they tried to remove a bolt lock from the door frame. So the last time this man really interacted.
Okay, so he lights the fire. The stepmom and somebody else, so obviously it's somebody helping her. They come and try to clean them up and remove evidence, is what they were trying to do. Remove the bolt locks and things of such nature to the door, try to cover up stuff.
With the outside world was when he was in grade school, but he stopped going to school in 4th grade when family services started asking questions. The last time police were in this home was last April. The stepmother's attorney says these charges are outlandish.
What we have right now are allegations. And yes, sometimes allegations look bad, but that's why we have a process. And that's why we have a defense. And we intend to mount one in this case. And we intend to push back on all the allegations that have been made against her.
All right, so if you're like me and you're wondering, how did this go on for 2 decades without anybody noticing? Some neighbors.
I was gonna say that lawyer is full of shit. Okay, if he thinks that we believe a word coming out his mouth, I understand things can be allegations, but some things are very, very, very obvious. Okay, so you come on now. People ain't just making up stuff. He been gone missing 20 years. He ain't been in school since 4th grade. Where he been? Who he been with? I don't know why he even wasted his breath releasing a statement to the news, as if we would believe that. It makes no sense what he tried to suggest just then. I hate blatant liar. I understand you gotta have your client back, man. Hey, right? Come on, don't just lie.
Say they had no idea that the man was even in the house, but the man's former school principal says, quote, "We knew it, we reported it, and not a thing was done." Steve, back to you.
Wow, lots to still figure out how that all took place for so long, allegedly. All right, Teresa, thanks so much.
Steve, back to you.
Wow, lots to still figure.
Go on for 2 decades.
Repeat that again.
All right, so if you're like me and you're wondering, how did this go on for 2 decades without anybody noticing? Some neighbors say they had no idea that the man was even in the house, but the man's former school principal says, quote, "We knew it, we reported it, and not a thing was done." Steve, back to you.
Wow, lots to still figure out how that all took place for so long, allegedly. All right, Teresa, thanks so much.
I like it. We knew it, we reported it, not a thing was done. She nailed the end of that.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation with you. As you all know, on February 17th, around 8:40 p.m., Waterbury police responded to 2 Blake Street on a report of a fire. Officers and fire investigators immediately realized there were some grave concerns about some of the conditions in the house. There were 2 occupants of the house, one being Kimberly Sullivan, the stepmother of the male victim. Officers and fire investigators quickly realized that there was a room in the house that appeared to have locks on it from the exterior portion of the house. They began to speak to the male victim, who disclosed that he was being held captive in the house for an extended period of time, approximately 20 years. The investigation began from that point. We worked closely with the State's Attorney's Office, Maureen Platt, as well as Assistant State's Attorney Don Thurkelson, because frankly, what was being reported was unfathomable to us at that point in time. Through those investigative meetings and through search warrants, we were able to seize physical evidence and conduct interviews and dig up some more information that corroborated the victim's story. This investigation, as the mayor points out, continues, is very open and very active. We were able to obtain arrest warrants for Kimberly Sullivan. She was arrested yesterday. She was arraigned in Waterbury Superior Court. She's currently being held on a $300,000 bond. At this point, I'll open the floor up for any questions.
The biological father, we've learned that he recently left the home, and her lawyer is saying that we need to look deeper into his part in all of this. When it comes to the investigation, is he?
And I know it's in portrait mode, but this is the lady. That's her. And that's her. She's an older woman, but she would be able to manipulate and control somebody. I would assume she has help because somebody showed up to the house with her to try to cover up evidence after the young man set the fire. But she had this young man way underweight, malnourished, and they said some orthopedic problems, probably from living in a cramped space. He probably had very little muscle development, any ability to fight back, to run away or anything like that. He would have been in a very fragile state, and she would have kept him that way, so that she can control him. And I'm saying that because my first thought was like, man, I would have knocked her out and got up out of there. But you wouldn't. If she was doing this 20 years, last time he was in school was 4th grade, so she started this early and kept him that way, obviously. So.
He being held accountable at all?
The biological father is deceased and died in January of 2024. Prior to his death, he was wheelchair bound from some medical conditions.
Also, it was reported to the school system that this boy at the time, now 32-year-old man, he was starving. He was asking other kids for lunch.
And what he just said was the biological father was at the house, but he was wheelchair bound. I would wonder, did he say anything? Was she abusing both of them? Was she the reason the father was in a wheelchair? Because he died. He said he died in 2024. It's so much. This was like a house of horrors.
I mean, is this a failure on the school system that this matter was not taken more seriously?
So we're doing some background investigation. There are 2 incidents that we had within our computer system of dealing with that address and with the family back in 2005. One was a request from DCF to do a welfare check at the location because children that the victim was familiar with hadn't seen him and they were concerned about him. Officers went to the house. The house was clean. It was lived in. They spoke to the victim at that point in time, and there were no cause for any alarm or any conditions that existed that would have led officers to believe anything other than a normal childhood and a normal family existence was occurring. But that was reported back to DCF, and that was the last that we were involved in that particular investigation. We were called back to the house in the latter part of April by the family who wanted to file a harassment complaint against members of the school district, saying that they were continuously reporting them to DCF and felt that they were trying to get the family in trouble and have the family investigated. We have no further information about where that went, other than there was no proof provided by the family that there was any type of harassment that was occurring. As far as the school district's concerned, we are looking at those records now. We're working with DCF to look at records that they may have from previous investigations, and that's part of the ongoing investigation.
But Chief, people were filing complaints, even if it was with DCF.
With that person as the only person that's at fault that I would blame is the father. And now that I'm hearing that you have people in the school, in the neighborhood, I mean, people outside of a home can only do but so much. I don't know how you put any accountability on them at all. You have people calling saying, hey, do a welfare check and all these things. Now, here's what's scary to think about, because I just questioned, was the stepmom abusing the father in his old fragile stage? But then I had to think about it, right? And what they just said reminded me. She's been doing this over 20 years. This boy ain't been in school since what they said, 4th grade. Yeah, 4th grade. The father would have had to been there. So the father was in on this? And that would have been how she got away with it. The father would have had to been on it. That's sad. When they went to that house, they said they did a welfare check. They went to the house. They said they spoke to the family. They spoke to the victim. The house was clean at the time. Everything in order. Then they said then that family complained and sit in they was going to file charges, complaints about harassment because of all the phone calls they was getting in the welfare checks, because when people was reporting them that they was abusing that kid or they hadn't seen the child. At the time, the biological father is living. He's at the house. So he was in on it. And so that's how she would have got away with it this time, because even his own father would have been a part of doing this to him. I can't. This could be a movie.
Continuously, as the family, I guess, alleged, was there more contact from DCF, and do you know anything about how that worked on?
So the only contact we had was back in April of 2005 when we were notified to conduct that welfare check. And again, we're looking for those records now to determine where that investigation may have gone, but there was no further reported information to the Waterbury Police Department.
So when you had an officer go out there that first time, you're saying everything looked normal, it looked like a normal childhood, but the school district, the principal told us that the child looked really small, malnourished, was drinking from a urinal at school, was taking kids' food. So, I mean, with all that information, the officer still concluded that the child was safe at that time?
Well, the officer didn't have that information. So this former principal is now disclosing all this information. And I believe in the news clips I've reviewed that he was making calls to DCF and other agencies. Waterbury Police were never notified by this particular principal about those conditions. So this is all information that is coming out now as this case unfolds.
Hold up, wait a minute. Huh? They said this boy was at school, malnourished, skinny, stealing food from other kids. And this part I've never heard of before in my life. They said he was also drinking out the urinal. They didn't have no water bottles at the school, no water fountain or anything like. That's crazy. The only thing I could think of why he would be doing that is, I shudder to think, it's sickening, is when he's locked up in his room, that mother, the stepmom and the father must have been teaching him to drink out the toilet, and he would only naturally repeat that behavior when he's at school. And earlier in the other news report, they said that the man, she wouldn't feed him or give him water. And so even as a grown man, he would have to go over to the toilet and drink out of the toilet bowl. This is scary. So that behavior was taught to him and has been going on since he was a little kid.
I believe he said he called police, but you have no record of that.
Well, I believe he's wrong if that's what he said, because there's no record of it.
Can you talk about, you said that there was some evidence that corroborates the story of the gentleman.
Can you talk any more about what that is, or how do you go about corroborating a story like this that's so extraordinary?
Right. So there's some physical evidence that was seized from the house that does corroborate the fact that that room did have exterior locks on it and a number of different styles of exterior locks, as was explained during an interview with the victim. Throughout the years, it appeared that the locks increased in security levels as time progressed, and obviously he became older and maybe a little bit stronger. So that's certainly one component, and then there's other components of the fire investigation that are part of the evidence package as well.
And I'm sorry if you said this, but were these the only two individuals living in that home?
Yes, there were two siblings. They were in and out of the home, but they have since moved out.
So say DCF had all this information the principal's saying, they don't share any of that with police?
You're going to have to talk to DCF about what their protocol is on when they share information with police. DCF does work closely with police departments and provides a lot of information to police departments in a number of different ways. I don't know what their protocol is on when they share that information, so that would be something that they would have to respond to.
Chief, how's the victim doing now? Obviously, some serious conditions. We've heard about the PTSD and depression. What can you share about how the victim's faring?
Right. So obviously, he's got a lot of mental health issues that he has to deal with at this point in time. There are a lot of physical conditions that he's working on as well. I mean, here's an adult that was 5'9" and 68 pounds. There's some apparent orthopedic issues. The room was very small. Honestly, when I read about it and talk to the investigators and overlook the interviews, it was worse than the conditions of a jail cell. So there's a lot of physical therapy that he'll have to go through. There's a lot of healing that he'll have to go through mentally. And I can tell you this: our investigators, and I'll specifically point out Detective Steve Brownell and Detective John Pace, who were the lead investigators in this particular case, but all the investigators, the entire Criminal Investigations Bureau has been very supportive of the victim. They took a collection up and bought him some items to try to make life more comfortable, some clothing and some books and some things to kind of get him along the way as he goes through this process. But, our plan is to continue to support him. He's going to need a lot of support as he travels through this and tries to figure out how to navigate what has occurred and what the future holds for him.
These folks asking some terrible questions, and I hate the lineup of questions that they're asking because they're trying to find a way to blame everybody but the actual villains, right? The principal, the defect, the police, look. People don't realize when you have a family and everybody's in on it, it's kind of hard to really catch people. You show up because here's the thing: people fight to have their rights, okay, and they don't want the government overstepping any bounds. Well, unfortunately, that same principle also protects everyone, and so no, they can't just go into a house and when they show up, it's nice and clean in there, and you walk in there, and there's remind you that woman that kept him for 20 years is his stepmom, which means he was living with his biological dad. And so when you walk in the house and you see a married couple as a biological dad, and there's other kids living in the house because they said there were siblings, and everyone says, oh, everything's cool, and they invite you in and stuff. I mean, unless you just see something outright crazy insane, they ain't going to be able to do nothing. Their hands are tied. What I would want to know is, I would ask, have you uncovered any information about the father who obviously was participating in this? Come on, man.
I think a lot of people are wondering, like, where are his other relatives? Did no one else see this man for 20 years that they were able to, say anything, report anything to police? Like, was his stepmother the only person in his life? You said he had two siblings. Where is everyone else? Where are all the relatives?
So the backdrop is being formed, and this is again why the investigation continues. It appears that there was a very controlling situation going on regarding the victim's condition, his whereabouts, his connection with other family members, other people in the community, other friends. Information was very guarded on what was released, and when he was able to see other members of the family and other members of the community. And I think that, I know from information provided in the interviews that there was a level of fear on retaliation on what would occur if information was released or help was provided to the victim by family members.
Were there any injuries as a result of the fire?
Smoke inhalation, to the best of my knowledge, I don't know if there's any long-term effects from what occurred at the fire, but on scene, he was treated for smoke inhalation.
Could he get out of the house? He could get out of the house on his own, or did firefighters have to rescue him?
He was assisted out of the house.
Will you be identifying him at any point?
That's a great question. Not at this time, and I don't really know when, if at all.
Where's the mother?
The mother has not been involved in the victim's life
from the beginning.
Pretty much, from all accounts, around 2 years old.
The suspect is denying all the allegations through her attorney. Has she said anything about how her stepson would be 68 pounds, for example?
Kimberly Sullivan refused to talk to us immediately.
Do you have a picture of the door lock that was taken as evidence?
I'm 100% certain that we do. I'd have to confer with the state's attorney if we were going to release any information like that at this time.
Does Kimberly Sullivan have any prior criminal convictions?
No prior criminal history with us here at the police department.
Neighbors were telling us that if you had knocked on the window, they would have helped them. Were there any other attempts besides his fire to try to get him some help?
No, again, I don't, from what we've put together so far, no, and that's because of a fear of retaliation. I mean, he, in his room, to relieve himself, right, had this elaborate mechanism that he created where he would urinate in a bottle, and he had straws connected to the bottom of the bottle, and he found a hole in the storm window frame that he was able to put these straws through. And he did that because the storm window itself wouldn't open up, and he was fearful that if he broke that storm window or tried to open it up, that there would be some retaliation. So, I'm certainly not a psychologist or psychiatrist, but there's a lot of nuances to people that are victims and held captive, and I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done with this particular gentleman in that area to really determine all the impact and all the effects that this long-term condition has really brought on him.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's a very real thing when you think about the effects of that. I remember this one, it was this guy, and he kidnapped these two girls, right, since they was little, and held them captive. And he was able to get them to the point where he would go out in the public with them. By the time they were like 17, 18 years old, they would go out in the public with him and just walk around with him. Something happened. An incident happened that caused them to be the girls to be arrested or brought in for questioning or something unrelated, right? And that was when it got revealed that the whole time the guy they was with wasn't really their father, that he had kidnapped them. But outside of that, he had trained them that, hey, when they go out in the public, they never even thought to run away from him in public, never thought to tell nobody or anything and stuff like that, And so I know there's a lot of people in their head thinking like, come on, man, you that afraid of this lady, and your dad, the dad, for some of that time was in the house, but he was in a wheelchair. And yeah, man, they've been doing this to him since he was in the 4th grade. Probably before then, it would be some abuse. his mom's not there. Seems to have abandoned him at the age of 2. They would have trained him mentally, I guess, through abuse to sit still in that room.
If you haven't had a case like this before.
33 years of law enforcement. This is the worst treatment of humanity that I've ever witnessed. Right? I mean, honestly, when we first started talking about it, we really couldn't believe it. It took a lot of convincing amongst ourselves to just really accept what was going on, and it's really hard to talk about still. I mean, it's shuddering to think that someone would treat any person, let alone a family member or someone that was entrusted as a guardian or a parental figure in this way.
Mayor, just can you also share your personal thoughts and reaction just knowing something so disturbing happened in this community?
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, it's just unfathomable that anyone could treat someone this way, as the chief said, especially within the relationship that they had. It's devastating, and we're going to make sure that the systems are working into the future to see what might have happened 20 years ago when this may have been reported. But at this point, it appears that this was just really an isolated sense and that they were locked in there all by themselves. And through fear and intimidation, she was able to keep it secret all that time.
So when you're talking about the future and other children, other families out there, I mean, if they're told for checks, and the kids are told to lie about being fed, I mean, what happens? Like, are they going to stay in these situations like he did, or?
Well, there's limits, I would think, to what you can do. We can send people out to check and look at it. I don't know what it looked like when the officer walked into the house in 2005, what the child looked like. That's 2 decades ago. And so, it's hard. We can send people out. We could do the checks. We can make sure that teachers, and administrators are looking out for children, notice some of the telltale signs. I think we've come a long way as well in 20 years over looking for these things and being able to report the requirements of what has to go to DCF have changed over that time. So I think we can continue to do it, but can I tell you that it will never happen again? I don't think anyone can tell you that, because there's a lot of things that go into this that, can help keep it secret.
Where was she arrested in Southington?
I don't know. I could get you that information. I'm not sure exactly where she was arrested in Southington. And it's important, to piggyback on the mayor's response to your inquiry. If you see something, say something. I know it's a cliche, and we talk about it all the time. But of all the great work that the media and press is doing now on this particular case. And talking to relatives and neighbors and some school district people. I know some have said that they've made calls, but some have said they haven't, right? So if things are peculiar, it's important to notify the police department. We will certainly look into that information and take the appropriate action. And it may take more than one time, depending on the circumstances we find when we get there. And we know that through history and through our work with servicing agencies, that victims of domestic violence, especially, are oftentimes reluctant to come forward. And we encourage people that are victims of domestic violence to find the fortitude to come forward, and we're here to help. We really are.
In this situation, though, it seems like, according to the police report, that his life became worse because someone reported it. And after that second DCF visit, the mother pulled him from school.
Correct.
But you still would encourage people to?
I would. I mean, because you're not going to break the cycle any other way. I mean, unfortunately, in this case, it seems as if an 11-year-old was taken extreme advantage of. And at that time, it's very tragic that occurred, but it will never stop, right? And this gentleman suffered for 2 decades because of that. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback, but I think it's really important to never lose hope and to continue to report incidents, especially if you're a victim of neglect or a crime.
Was he in the room all the time? Because there were some reports that he was in the backyard doing
chores?
He would be released in the room anywhere from 15 minutes to a couple of hours every day. There was some indication during the interview that although his dad didn't do him too many favors when the stepmother wasn't around, he would stay out of the room a little bit longer.
A news conference there underway on a very disturbing story that is out of Waterbury, Connecticut, where police say a man was held captive for 20 years inside a home. His stepmother, Kimberly Sullivan, has now been charged.
That is insane. So basically, he was like living in
Turned out
prison.
a Connecticut woman accused of imprisoning her 32-year-old stepson for decades. Police say he started a fire and is desperate to break free. Whit Johnson here with the story. Good morning, Whit.
George, good morning. This is a disturbing story here. Police called it a life of captivity and starvation and abuse. The man told authorities he intentionally started the fire at his home and even collapsed to the ground and wouldn't get up because he wanted the fire department to save him, believing that was his only way out.
This morning, harrowing new details of a 32-year-old man now free after allegedly being held captive for decades. His stepmother taken into custody.
This is the worst treatment of humanity that I've ever witnessed.
Last month, authorities in Waterbury, Connecticut, responding to reports of an active fire at 56-year-old Kimberly Sullivan's home, making an alarming discovery.
Here's an adult that was 5'9" and 68 pounds.
According to new court documents, officers came into contact with a man who was extremely emaciated. He told officers he intentionally started the fire in his room on the second floor using a lighter, hand sanitizer, and paper because he wanted his freedom.
There's some physical evidence that was seized from the house that does corroborate the fact that that room did have exterior locks on it.
Sullivan appearing in court Thursday, now out on bail, facing multiple charges, including unlawful restraint, reckless endangerment, assault, and kidnapping. The accuser recounting details of his alleged captivity to authorities, saying he had not bathed in over a year. He was let outside for mere minutes a day, and his diet reduced to 2 sandwiches a day. When asked if he was hungry every day, he stated, "All day, every day, my entire life."
That is an awfully long time for no one to have information about what happened to this young man and why he was out of sight and ultimately became out of mind.
And Sullivan's attorney says she denies all allegations and suggested it was the biological father who dictated how his son was raised. He died last year. According to court documents, the Department of Children and Families did visit the home on a couple of occasions, but those visits stopped years ago after the boy was pulled out of school, guys.
What a horrible story. Yeah, sounds unbelievable.
Yeah, it was an act of desperation to get out of that house.
All right, Whit. Thank you. Appreciate that.
That's sad. And what I think about, like, when they show pictures,
Our top
when they show pictures of that house, I mean, how could one you couldn't help but to lose hope. I mean, how brazen would it be that you're in a house? I mean, do you see the way because I'd assume like it was like that the whole time. She would have boards and stuff over the window and people walk past the house every day. And it's so brazen that people pass that house by all the time. Some people assuming, being suspicious, some people not knowing, but for 20 years that could go on and nobody do anything about it. I mean, that's just a terror. He served a 20-year prison sentence is what happened to him. And this next clip is about the same story. It says best friend of Waterbury victim held captive, searched years for him.
Story tonight, the best friend of a man allegedly held captive for decades is speaking out to News 8 about their time in school together.
Police believe the 32-year-old victim was abused by his stepmother since he was 3 years old. News 8's Jane Chaco live outside their home in Waterbury with more. Jane.
Matthew Stanko says he quickly became best friends with the victim. They went to baseball games together, paired up during class activities. He says he searched years for him, never knowing what happened to his friend until now.
searched MySpace, I searched social media, I searched like anywhere I can to see if maybe there's some type of, digital footprint of him.
Matthew Stanko says his family moved around a lot when he was young and it was hard to make friends. He says he instantly connected with another boy in second grade.
Me and him would sit in class, and what we would do is we would break crayons in half and we would throw them at each other. And the teacher got so really upset about it that she ended up having to separate us.
Stanko showed us pictures.
That's the smile I remember, that side smile.
Explaining how they were inseparable at the former Barnard Elementary School. Even when Stanko went to a different school the next year, the two talked at the fence of the playground almost every day.
One day he just never came back to the fence, never spoke to me.
That's when Stanko believes the victim stopped coming to school. Court documents detail how his stepmother, Kimberly Sullivan, pulled him out of school after the Department of Children and Families was contacted about the victim's behavior. Since then, the victim says he was locked in a room at their Blake Street home, sometimes 24 hours a day. He was barely fed or given water. Police say he set fire to his home to escape.
They did notice a slide lock on the exterior of the door.
Deputy Chief Bob Stalker responded to the home the night of the fire. He says the fire was contained quickly. He didn't know until afterwards about the real danger the victim faced.
The captain on Engine 11 put it very well. He said that this individual had faith that we were going to come for him and rescue him.
I wish that I knew what I knew because I would have done something.
Stanko hasn't been able to visit the victim yet, but he hopes he remembers him.
I love you, and I just want you to know I'm here. And I still remember all the memories we had, all the times we spent.
And we reached out for an update on the victim's condition tonight. Police say he's still in a medical facility receiving treatment. Live in Waterbury, Jane Chaco, News 8.
How hard is it to find a friend? He remember that since second grade. You can tell he tore up.
Yeah, guys, I mean, imagine laying.
He is tore up and sad about that. What's interesting is now everybody's coming out the woodworks saying that they've been looking for this guy. In this next clip, we got the biological family of Waterbury man allegedly held captive for 20 years is speaking out. The news is doing they damn job on this one. They pulling everybody out. They done found the best friend from the second grade. I don't know where they found him, and he got his coffee cup and everything. He ready. Oh my God.
Eyes on your brother when you were a child, only for that to be the final time you see him again. That's the reality that Heather Testman says she's been faced with her entire life.
Just once is how many times Tessman saw her brother. She was just a child herself during that first and last time.
I saw him when he was a baby. I was in foster care, and our mom brought him to see me, and that was the only time I've ever seen him.
Due to personal reasons.
Wow. Okay. And so they said the mom, so the daughter was all, so this, you have a mom that has a child that's already in foster care. She has another baby, and that's kind of weird to me. You have a kid that's already in foster care. You have another child, and you bring that child to visit the other child in foster care, and then I guess she perhaps gave that child up at the age of 2. The boy that was locked, the man that was been locked in that room for 20 years, his mom gave him up at the age of 2. So yeah, that's another thing to point out and remember. People say, well, how did this happen? Well, you got parents that the parents. No other way to say that.
The man's biological mother gave his father custody when he was a kid.
He just completely shut me out. He shut everybody out. Some of his family, though, still got to see him. As for him growing up, I missed that all.
She never got to be a mother.
Since like November.
And Tessman never got to be a sister.
I've always just wanted him to be a part of my life, you know. Figured someday I'd find him and like, hey, let's grab a beer. Let's, catch up. How's it going?
As Tessman got older, she'd search everywhere for signs.
Social media, every search engine you can think of, court records, ancestry websites.
Every lead turned out to be a dead end.
I couldn't find anything. I could see that he was born. That was it.
That is until her mom called and told Tessman that her brother had been found.
My sister had called me and said we found.
I just saw it on the news. I didn't put 2 and 2 together. Saturday, our mom texted me, get a hold of me ASAP. Okay, what's up? That was your brother. No, it wasn't.
The family is still in shock at how something like this could have gone on for so long.
Just think he slipped through the cracks. Really?
I'm sure he was terrified. I would like to believe that if a child needed help, they would say something.
His mom and sister haven't spoken with him yet, but they hope to soon.
That I love him, and we all love him. He has never been forgotten about.
I'm going to tell him that I love him, and I've always looked for him forever. And
now, meanwhile, Kimberly Sullivan, the man's stepmother, and her attorney deny any claims that Sullivan kept the man locked up in this house for over 20 years. We reached out to members of the Sullivan family, uncles, aunts, sisters, and brothers to see if anybody would be able to do an interview, but all of them declined for that. In Waterbury, Jamel Johnson, Fox 61.
But we begin in Waterbury, where the case.
It's just sad. It's kind of like they treated that young man like I don't know, like you lost a pair of shoes, you lost some socks, your favorite jacket. You misplaced your keys. The misplacing of a whole human being, that it's just disturbing. The next clip coming up is the biological mother of Waterbury man held captive speaks out. See what she got to say.
Case of a man held captive for 20 years is getting national attention. Thanks so much for joining us tonight for the news at 11. I'm Keisha Grant.
And I'm Mike Hydek. Tonight, we are getting the first look at the moments firefighters pulled that man to safety after he said he was locked in a room by his stepmom for decades. He started a fire to set himself free. We'll hear exclusively from the first responders who saved him in just a moment.
But first, his biological mother and sister are sharing details you'll only see here on NBC Connecticut.
This is not real life. We have looked for him for so long.
That mother distraught, hearing the disturbing allegations of what life has been like for her son.
NBC Connecticut's Amanda Pitts joining us here in studio with the message tonight in her exclusive interview. Amanda.
Well, Mike and Keisha, she ultimately wants her son to know that she loves him and that he has family out there that loves him. She gave him up when she was a baby, but never stopped searching for him.
She could rot in hell.
Strong words from the biological mother of the man who says he'd been held captive by his stepmother in this Waterbury home for decades.
My sister actually called me while I was at work, and she had stated that we found him.
It was a call she'll never forget, finding out her son had allegedly been locked in a room for 20 years.
I still just can't fathom it. How can anybody treat somebody like that?
Speaking to us anonymously, the 52-year-old gave up custody of her son when he was a child. She and her daughter, his half-sister, scoured the internet for him once he became an adult.
I've been looking for him for over a decade. I wanted to wait until he was 18. I am almost 35 now, and there was nothing. No social media, no court records, no ancestry information, nothing.
It was as if he didn't exist. His stepmother, Kimberly Sullivan, is now facing charges including kidnapping and assault.
She needs to actually spend the rest of her life in solitary confinement and fed 2 cups of water a day.
Now she's sending this message to her son.
That we all love him. I love him, and I
of him?
He is so strong, and I'm so proud of him for doing what he needed to do. I wish he did it sooner.
Now, both women haven't yet seen the victim, but hope to in the future. Meanwhile, Sullivan's attorneys maintain her innocence and continue to put blame on the victim's biological father. He died last year and was wheelchair bound prior to his death. Live in studio, Amanda Pitts, NBC Connecticut News. Keisha, back to you.
It's so sad that when you have situations like this, people that just bring kids into the
Mother is
world,
behind bars tonight in Troup County.
when you have people that bring kids into this world with no real plan, the kids are always the ones that suffer every time. When you have people that bring, it sounds like to me though that the mom might have been young. I would say maybe she started having kids as a teenager. I don't know. I need more background to that. I think she's gonna have to take some accountability too. Even when she had that young boy, she had another daughter, and that daughter was in foster care at the time. When she saw her brother, her mom brought the little boy over there to see her at her foster home. And shortly after that, at the age of 2, she drops him off to the father. And so the story begins of his life being a living hell. And that's sad. The statement that he gave to the police, they said, how often was you hungry? He said he was hungry literally every day his entire life. That's torture. The police said his room, the way he lived, the police officer said prisoners live better than he lived. That's crazy. On to the next story. This one about a mom.
Is behind bars tonight in Troup County. Police say a woman abandoned her children in Heard County and then stabbed 2 women during a home invasion in Troup County.
Officials say she also set a building on fire. Fox 5's Deidre Dukes spoke to the man who called police after spotting one of the children alone on the side of the road.
Larry Hardy says he immediately called 911 as he was driving here along Franklin Parkway early Wednesday morning after he says he saw a young child standing alone here on the side of the road.
As I drove up the road, I seen this little girl. She was standing on the curb.
Larry Hardy shared this video of a 6-year-old girl standing alone in the dark here along the roadway in Franklin at around 2 Wednesday morning.
I didn't see no one else around.
Franklin Police Chief Kevin Hanna told Fox 5 the child's mother, Dejave Conway, abandoned the little girl and her 2-year-old brother in the parking lot of a business on Franklin Parkway.
He walked down and went behind.
Hardy was hauling a load of lumber when he spotted the girl. He called 911. A co-worker who drove by the business around the same time also spotted the child.
I told the guy that was behind me, I said, look at that little girl standing there on that curb holding that box with that white cowboy hat.
Franklin police responded to the scene and discovered the children in the parking lot. The little girl told them the family was traveling from Dayton, Ohio to Florida when the child's mother abandoned them, telling the children to hide in the woods. Officers issued a bolo for Conway's vehicle. Then at around 5 a.m., Troup County Fire and Sheriff's deputies responded to a report of a home invasion at a residence on New Franklin Road. According to sheriff's officials, Conway broke into the residence, attacked 2 women, stabbing them multiple times, and set a building on the property on fire. She then fled the scene in the victim's vehicle. Conway's van was found at the crime scene. She was apprehended a short time later. Investigators don't know why she attacked the women. They don't believe she knew them. Police turned Conway's children over to DFACS. Hardy is thankful the siblings weren't hurt.
And this road is very dark right in this area here too. So when that child walked out there, into the road, and there was no adult, anything by the child when she was standing here on the curb.
In Heard County, Deidre Dukes, Fox 5 News.
Thank God for blessing that man with some good, eyes. I don't know. It seems like I would hope the mom was coming back for the kids. It would seem that she was stashing her kids so that she
Questions
could
and answers.
go make some money for them, I assume. That's crazy. I mean, thank God they didn't go out into the streets. Thank God that somebody with a heart, a good person saw them. You know, I could only imagine it, like if some pervert came along and saw them. You know, it's thank God, man, that they could have easily wandered out in the street. People be flying down roads like that, especially when it's dark, you know, especially if you're on them back roads. A lot of times, not too many police on those back roads. People use that as an opportunity to speed. I mean, they could have been hit by a car. Anything could have happened, you know, to those kids, man. Fortunately, they're okay. Judging from the mugshot, the mom like she got mental problems, man. But thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like button if you like watching this live or on the replay. Smash the like button, put me in the algorithm. I don't ask for no money or nothing like that. Just like the video, please. Next clip that I got coming up, and this is when caregivers attack, the worst news ever. Here on Risky Behavior, I am Mr. Diabolical himself. This next one is NYPD sources. Death of 3-year-old boy abandoned at hospital is suspicious. And this is News 12.
More questions than answers remain tonight after an unconscious 3-year-old boy was dropped off at SUNY Downstate Hospital on Sunday. Police are investigating as the community and the boy's family search for answers. News 12 Shakti Dennis has the latest on this tragic story.
It was just before noon on Sunday when a woman walked into the ER at SUNY Downstate Medical Center carrying 3-year-old King Davis in her arms. Police say he was unconscious, unresponsive, and his small body covered in bruises.
It's hurting me, y'all. I don't know what to do right now.
Some of King's family members believe his mother dropped him off and then left him. They say she struggled with mental illness. Child advocates say this tragedy highlights the need for parents in crisis to seek help before it's too late.
No child should ever have to suffer at all because there's means and ways in which the parents or guardians or family members or neighbors or whoever could use.
ACS offers a prevention support line for any parent struggling to care for their children, no matter their situation or immigration status. There are also respite care programs for parents who need a break. And under New York's safe haven law, a parent who feels they can't take care for their newborn can legally and anonymously leave them at a hospital, firehouse, or police station within 30 days. No questions asked.
He could have had so much more. He could have been so much more.
Now, King's family members are urging his mother to turn herself in so they can at least get some closure. Until then, police continues to investigate as we wait for the medical examiner to determine how he died. In East Flatbush, Shakti Dennis, News 12 Brooklyn.
Very sad, very sad, very sad. Kid abandoned
In New York
at
City.
the oh my God. At least she had enough sense to drop him off at a hospital to, you know, I guess to try to save his life. It's hard to know what to think because we don't have all the details. Hopefully the family, what is, you know, the little boy, he's passed away now. I've had family members in those situations, and the only thing really the family can do is step in. And I know you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but sometimes you got to step in if you can. And that's another thing. A lot of times you have family members, they'll complain and they'll say, oh, she didn't have to do this, she didn't have to do that. But, and I'm not trying to sound harsh because it's not necessarily, I guess, their responsibility, but sometimes you wonder, well, what were you doing? You know, sometimes family members have to step in, try to fight for custody, even if it means reporting your own family member and stepping in saying, hey, this person is unfit, mental illness, and I'm coming for the custody of that kid. That kid should be with me. And I've had family members that happened to. And sometimes the parent gets upset. But whatever, you're just gonna have to be upset because we trying to save this child's life. So I know you feel upset. I'm reporting you. Cool. I'm taking custody. And it happens, man. One of my cousins, the family took custody of her children, and she actually had to pay child support to her own family members. They might be upset, but the most important thing is we got to save the kid. This next news story is one that was popular that I added with this one because I was doing, hey, you know, when caregivers attack, but it ain't necessarily always about attacking. Sometimes it can be just pure neglect. This next news story was shocking. I remember when it came out. This is about the daycare owners with the fentanyl in the daycare. So I remember somebody was like, this is crazy. It's kind of like, what, you know, Power. Remember in Power, they had the when they had the daycare and they was saying like they was gonna keep the drugs there. Somebody's like this is crazy. This is real life, but it's like off of a TV show. It's insane.
Daycare owners now facing federal drug charges after police say a 1-year-old died from exposure to fentanyl. The owner and her tenant are also charged with murder after investigators say they found a kilo of the deadly drug stored on top of playmats at the daycare. 3 other children were exposed but are now recovering. The case comes as the DEA calls fentanyl the most urgent threat in our nation. Senior investigative reporter Aaron Katersky is in the Bronx with the latest.
The owner of Divino Nino Daycare is locked up on federal drug charges, accusing her of storing fentanyl on playmats children use to take naps.
One of the most reckless things that a human can do, to endanger the life of a child like that.
Inside the daycare, investigators say they found large quantities of fentanyl along with machines and supplies to package it for sale.
Was this daycare meant to hide a drug operation?
So, Aaron, these drug traffickers, they don't care. They could care less about the people that they're putting in harm's way. And in this case, these babies were poisoned by the reckless, irresponsible behavior of drug traffickers.
4 children became ill after they were exposed, but the owner, Gray Mendez, allegedly called her husband twice before dialing 911. And while waiting for paramedics, prosecutors say her husband was seen carrying heavy shopping bags out a back alley.
All of that happened while the children, the babies, were suffering from the effects of fentanyl poisoning and in desperate need of help.
1-year-old Nicholas Dominici died at the hospital. 3 others were revived with the overdose reversal drug Narcan. The DEA says the case demonstrates the danger fentanyl poses to the country. It's often now mixed into other drugs, but since it's odorless and tasteless, users may never know. Fentanyl-related deaths have increased every year in the last decade. As little as 2 milligrams can be lethal, and the DEA says it seized enough just last year to kill every American.
And senior investigative reporter Aaron Katersky joins me now from the Bronx. Aaron, this daycare just passed an inspection, but inspectors say they don't check for fentanyl. So is that going to change now?
I mean, who would ever think that daycare inspectors, Diane, would have to check for the presence of fentanyl in a child care center? It's almost unthinkable. So the city health department says, no, inspectors are not trained to sniff out fentanyl. But the health commissioner said the other day, maybe now they have to be, which really is a sign of the country's struggle with fentanyl. It is killing tens of thousands of Americans every single year. And if it's in a daycare, Diane, the DEA says it shows it can really be anywhere.
It does seem that way. Aaron, this has to be devastating for the parents who trusted this daycare with their own children. How are people there in the community reacting?
You can see some of the mementos left behind in memory of little Nicholas Dominici, who was just 1 year old, little shy of his 2-year birthday. We spoke to his father, who was just devastated and in tears, who said he loves his son and he wants him back. But he becomes what the DEA says is just one of tens of thousands of fentanyl victims. And thankfully, the 3 others who were poisoned are going to be okay, though 2 remain in the hospital this morning.
Now, the owner of the daycare has pleaded not guilty. Police are now searching for her husband. He was allegedly seen carrying these shopping bags out of a back alley while she was waiting for the paramedics. So what's the latest on that manhunt and what's next in this case?
Police are confident that they are going to be able to catch the husband. And you're right, while the babies were suffering from the effects of fentanyl, prosecutors say he was carrying heavy shopping bags out a back alley from this building. So the insinuation is he was trying to cover up what was stored inside. Police are confident they're going to get him. In the meantime, Mendez and a co-conspirator who was renting a room from her in this building are both being held without bail. They face the federal drug charges. They also face murder charges here in the Bronx.
All right, Aaron Kaczorski there in the Bronx near the daycare center. Aaron, thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts.
It's insane. As a parent, you would never, I don't think that would cross your mind.
Also develop.
I mean, you wonder, like, can they do things like change diapers, nap time? Do you read to the kids? Coloring. I don't think anybody would have thought fentanyl would be in the daycare. And I don't know. It's insane. I would hope the person would turn themselves in, perhaps feel bad about what they're doing. But in those situations, man, people only care about saving their own self. Thank God they was able to revive the other 3 children, and all of them didn't pass away. Because the clock is ticking, and while the clock is ticking, she doesn't even call the police right away. She calls her husband to come clear everything out. So I got another news clip on that.
Helping tonight, a former daycare owner in the Bronx sentenced to 45 years in prison after pleading guilty to several drug charges.
That's right. The charges stem from the death of a 1-year-old who was exposed to fentanyl at the daycare. Fox 5's Arthur Chan is live outside federal court in Lower Manhattan, where her sentence was handed down. Arthur.
Steve, Natasha, the woman's name is Gray Mendez. She was the woman who basically was the head of that Bronx daycare where all of this unfolded. She was just sentenced to 45 years in prison, as you said. Now, this is a case that horrified New Yorkers who learned of it as it unfolded. And in fact, it horrified anybody who heard about what happened at that daycare in the Bronx. Now, immediately following the sentencing, the parents of the 1-year-old boy who was killed spoke. Their heartbreak appeared to be as raw as when this all came to light 2 years ago. Their son, just 22 years old, Nicholas Dominici, died after he and 3 others were exposed to fentanyl. This according to court papers, which said the daycare that was entrusted with protecting them, the Vino Nino, actually was functioning as a secret stash house where fentanyl and heroin was prepared for distribution on a regular basis. Investigators even found a kilo-sized brick of fentanyl inside a closet of the daycare facility, in addition to other equipment used for drug smuggling. Gray Mendez was accused of calling her husband multiple times, allegedly to clear the drugs, while waiting before calling 911, even as the 4 very young children were severely overdosing. And by the time help arrived, it was too late for Nicholas. Right after this sentencing, Nicholas's parents spoke in an emotional press conference, drawing a painful distinction between receiving justice in a court of law and receiving justice in life. To make sure we get it right, our own Stephanie Bertini translates for us.
Nicholas no va a volver nunca. Nicholas is not going to come back ever. In one way, there was justice, and now I want divine justice. I'm waiting for her to pay. I wish Nicholas was coming back, but he's not.
Separately, Mendez's husband has already been sentenced also to 45 years in federal prison in connection with this case. One would hope that this allows Nicholas's family to start a new chapter, but hearing the pain in their voices today, it's hard to imagine that starting anytime soon. We're live at the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Arthur Trion, Fox 5 News. Steve, Natasha.
Yeah, so terrible. All right, thanks, Arthur.
I wonder why they didn't get life. 45.
It happened at a daycare facility on Flat Shoals Road.
That's crazy. That's just sad. That's how dangerous that drug is. The fact that it could just be on a mat or in the area and somebody could just overdose over it. And that's just crazy. I can't even wrap my brain around that the daycare is where they cooking up heroin and fentanyl. You would never think that. That would blindside everybody. That is insane. That's and with the price, I don't even know, with the price of having to pay people to take care of your kids anyway. I mean, it looked like they had a legitimate business that would be sufficient enough. They're renting out buildings to people. You wouldn't think they would need to even do something like that. That's just crazy. From the outside looking in, you got this married couple. They say, oh, man, they successful, got a daycare, they rent out rooms and stuff. I mean, why would they even mix drugs up in that? Anywho, worst news ever when caregivers attack. This is another daycare incident that happened. I got another clip, and let me see. All right, cool. This is gonna be the last one for this video, and then I'll be coming back later on. This is another daycare attack. Parents, be careful as you can. That last one, I'm sure those parents were careful and they would not know. No one would know to look for fentanyl. But here we go. Another video pulling up on the screen.
It happened at a daycare facility on Flat Shoals Road in South Fulton. That is where we begin tonight on Fox 5 News at 10. Thanks for joining us. I'm Courtney Bryant.
And I'm Russ Spencer. That employee was taken to the Fulton County Jail. Fox 5's Christopher King spoke with the little boy's parents and joins us now live in South Fulton. Christopher?
Russ, Courtney, it happened right here at Leapfrog Early Learning Academy. The little boy's parents say a daycare worker hit their son with a wooden block. They say it opened up a gash over his eye. They showed us video from the daycare. We warn you, some of you may find it disturbing. Take a look at this security video. A toddler scampers into a cubicle. A daycare worker follows him. She holds what appears to be a wooden block. She appears to swing it in the boy's direction.
My heart broke. My world came crashing. That's my son.
Jared Graves is the father of the little boy in the video, 2-year-old Jared Jr. Police say that incident happened on Tuesday here at Leapfrog Early Learning Academy on Flat Shoals Road in South Fulton. A spokesperson says the worker threw a wooden block at the child.
She proceeded to pick up some type of a wooden block, maybe about that big.
Graves says the block struck his son, opening a cut.
A gash right here by his eye. And he also has swollen blood vessels in the corner of his eye. He was bleeding.
Graves says the daycare did not tell him or his wife about the incident.
I never got a phone call. Mom never got a phone call about anything happened.
Graves' wife picked up their son Tuesday afternoon. He says the worker told his wife, Jared Jr., hurt himself falling.
And my wife was told that he fell on a mop bucket.
That explanation did not sit well with the couple, so they went to the daycare and asked to watch the video.
An unsettling feeling.
South Fulton police on Wednesday arrested Nakia McLester. Graves says the daycare told him the worker was fired, but Graves is not satisfied.
We want to press charges at the full extent of the law, and we also want to sue the school as well. Some type.
Here at Leapfrog Early Learning Academy on Flat Shoals Road in South Fulton. A spokesperson says the worker threw a wooden block at the child.
You see that? Look how brazen she is. She just, who in their right mind thinks, oh, I can just throw a block at somebody else's kid and just go on about my day? Oh, your kid fell on the mop bucket. These some good people. These some good Christian folk here. My family, but we too. I'd have tore that place up. I'm gonna tell you right now. I would have had no room to sue or press charges. It would have been charges pressed against me. The palm of my hand is itching just thinking about couldn't be me. We'd have tore that place up. I've done things like that for less. I've even done things like that for no reason at all. I couldn't imagine this, man. I don't get these people think they can just play with other people's kids. It's insane.
She proceeded to pick up some type of a wooden block, maybe about that big.
Graves says the block struck his son, opening a cut.
A gash right here by his eye. And he also has swollen blood vessels in the corner of his eye. He was bleeding.
Graves says the daycare did not tell him or his wife about the incident.
I never got a phone call. Mom never got a phone call about anything happened.
Graves' wife picked up their son Tuesday afternoon. He says the worker told his wife, Jared Jr., hurt himself falling.
And my wife was told that he fell on a mop bucket.
That explanation did not sit well with the couple, so they went to the daycare and asked to watch the video.
An unsettling feeling.
South Fulton police on Wednesday arrested Nakia McLester. Graves says the daycare told him the worker was fired, but Graves is not satisfied.
We want to press charges at the full extent of the law, and we also want to sue the school as well.
We call Leapfrog. We are waiting for a response. In the meantime, McLester was booked at the Fulton County Jail. She's charged with cruelty to children and battery. Now, a spokesperson for the Georgia Department of Early Care and Learning says Leapfrog currently appears to be in good standing. We're live in South Fulton. Christopher King, Fox 5 News.
That's Leapfrog. I hope any parent, I hope the parents, people see this and pull them out. And this would be the time for the community. Everybody got a kid there, pull their kid out and shut that place down. And that husband and that wife go right behind that and sue them. You know what? Because if it was me, look, it wouldn't matter if they pulled the kids out or not. I'm about to take so much money from them, they would not be able to operate. Everybody will have to find a new daycare. I'm gonna be straight though, because I'm about to sue them, and so I'm going on vacations and stuff and chilling, man. After that, and that's crazy. The fact, and you know they know that they care more about the money than alerting the parents. That's why they just sued. That's why they just fired the worker and try to cover it up, right? Because they know they're wrong, but they don't want to be sued. So of course they're gonna cover their end. Which I think they made it harder on themselves, because I would like to think that in a situation like that, everybody doesn't just think to sue like that. I would think that if they would have called them in, been honest and transparent and say, hey man, this has happened. We want to be able to press charges on this worker. We fired them immediately. We got video footage. We want to press charges and persecute this person. I'm pretty sure that mother and father would have said thank you. Situation would have been rectified. and they probably wouldn't even sue. Now this person has risked losing their whole business by trying to cover something up and lie about it, when they could have simply did the right thing and probably would avoid being. So it's so many people. I know people think, oh, people sue. There's so many things that happen that people could sue and they don't. There's way more people that don't sue than people that do sue. Okay. Even though you do have people that sue about anything nowadays, but a lot of times in serious situations like this where people could sue, a lot of times you see people don't, like, why wouldn't you sue? People suing over stupid stuff like this, and you wouldn't sue over something serious. So I just think they just made it harder on themselves. The business did. They should have brought that family in there and had transparency and did it the right way. And it would have helped them out. In the end, if anybody came in to question them, but we don't know. If they probably hired some girl that didn't even have the proper credentials to be up in there watching somebody's kids. Anyway, most likely they probably just hired anybody, and that's why they're trying to cover stuff up. It's sad, it's unfortunate, but anywho, this is Risky Behavior. I am Diabolical. We just watched the worst news ever. The title for today was When Caregivers Attack. The purpose is to highlight crimes against children. If you notice, if you're somebody that watches the news, even when they report on these crimes, they tend to not follow them. Majority of the time, crimes against kids get swept under the rug. I don't know why I haven't figured that out, and I've always wondered about it, and I don't have a answer for why that is. Perhaps because politically it doesn't have much value to them, versus if it's something involving a gun, people fighting about gun laws and stuff like that. So they'll highlight that. Crimes that with the police might shoot an unarmed person, they'll put that out because politically they can use that. So my answer that I have arrived at is I think the news is everything they put out has some type of political agenda to it, and I don't think they necessarily have one for children, and so therefore they don't tend to get that much airtime. Even with that daycare one, I'm surprised about that, except for when it comes to the daycare owner who had the fentanyl and what was it? 4 children overdosed. 3 they were able to bring them back using Narcan, but 1 did sadly pass away. There's always a war on drugs going on within this country, and that's probably why that one got so much attention, even to the point where they did a follow-up of, and that's my point when I say they cover it and they sweep it under the rug. They'll cover a crime against a kid, and then that's just the end of it. With the one with the fentanyl, because of the political value it may hold, they not only covered it, and it's pretty it's kind of like a story you couldn't ignore, but they covered it and then they double back and said, oh, now she's been sentenced. And if you notice and pay attention, a lot of times with these crimes against kids, even if they do report on it, they don't do a follow-up to it or anything like that and stuff. And so that's the purpose. So a lot of the things I do will focus on kids, or to focus on like domestic violence or something like that. So anywho, I'm Risky Behavior, aka Diabolical. This is the worst news ever, when caregivers attack. I appreciate everybody rocking out. If you're watching it on the live or on the replay, make sure you smash that like button. Put me in the algorithm, get me out there. Totally free. I don't ask for no money or donations or anything like that. I appreciate you all. I want you to be blessed. Have a great day. I might be on later on today, but I won't make no promises.
Risky behavior.